Some brands are legendary. In every category, someone sets the standard, and some companies create raving fans. Join Scott Wozniak and Caitlin Johnson of Swaz Consulting as we dig into the tactics and tools behind great organizations. How did the legends do it? And how can you become a legendary brand too? All right, Caitlin, I am excited to dive into this next one because, man, we've been doing this a lot lately. But okay, before I get into it, let me frame. We talk about how to create an amazing customer experience. And as a part of that engine, we got all these cool tactical things we're doing. But floating above the diagram we draw, the fuel pouring into the engine that makes all of it possible is customer insight.
Right.
The more you know your customers, the smarter, better, more effective, less wasteful. I mean, everything improves as you improve your customer insight. And man, we find companies most of the time have customer data, not customer insight, like
Right.
We got all this
And
raw.
we'll explain the difference.
Yes.
We'll explain the difference in this podcast. And the reason why, Scott, you and I selected to talk about this right now is that we're getting customer insights and trends of people wanting to understand what is a pulse survey.
Yes.
What is it and how do I do it and what's the benefit? So can you share?
Okay, so let me start by maybe saying what it's not. Okay, so the pulse survey is a reaction to the standard customer satisfaction survey process that most of us do, right? The once a year, or if you're project-based, end of project, you send them 25 questions. Hey, what do you think? Caitlin, have we talked about this? Do you remember what the national percent response rate is? Do you remember this?
How much you told me once. It's low, right?
Yeah. How many Americans actually answer these customer satisfaction surveys? It's 3%.
3%. That's so crazy. I mean, just today I deleted a request for.
Yes. I did yesterday. Same. Like, no, not bothering with that. Like, heck no. It's not good, right? When I was getting my master's in business, they made me take statistics course, which actually I thought was going to be terrible. It turned out to be awesome. Maybe it was because of the professor, but one of the
that
things
was not my experience.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's what I expect. So one of the things they talked about is when you're doing surveys and collecting data, that you need to have statistically significant response rate. Like if you don't get a certain percentage of response, then the data is not valid, right? Like if you ask 1,000 people their opinion and one guy answers,
null and void.
You should totally ignore his answer. Like
that's an opinion. That's not data.
Yeah. Thanks, Billy. Appreciate that. But I can't use that as reliable data to know what the rest of the community thinks. Now, what the exact number is changes on the data set. I'm going to save us all a lot of pain and not get into the math here. But let's just say 3% is not statistically significant unless you have a massive customer base. I mean, literally, if you're doing the standard survey and getting the standard responses, you should be ignoring what it says. Like it's not valid. It's not okay. So this is not a downer, right? We're here to give you tools and tactics. You can actually do this. What we have really become a fan of and help we use and have our clients use and all this stuff is what we call a pulse survey. So instead of one big chunk of questions all at once at the end, we do a tiny pulse of questions, a series of mini surveys, right? My rule is like 4 questions or less, because what I'm aiming for is 30 seconds or shorter for you can say, hey, here's my click, I'm getting out. Make it easy. And you guys, you can't cheat. These aren't essay questions with sub questions.
Yeah. So multiple choice or kind of pick a
multiple
answer,
choice,
1 to 5.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Literally, I could click. Now you can put in optional comment box in some of these. If they want to riff and rant, they are allowed to, but not required to. And so you make it easy, you make it fast, click, not multi-page, and you do a series of small surveys. And by the end of the, let's say, instead of once a year, you do it once a month.
I was just going to ask frequency. What would you recommend or what you've seen?
Now, I'll save the answer to that in a minute because I'm going to give you like a generic pulse survey, and then we're going to start applying it to this kind of industry or that industry because it changes whether you're project-based, like a big construction company, or whether you're kind of a perennial ongoing relationship with your customers. It changes if it's a few amount of customers in a high dollar deal that might be much more personalized than if you're a retail shop and you have 100,000 customers a month. You can't do personal conversations with everybody. And so managing all this stuff, the nuances change. But generically, imagine once a month, maybe once a quarter, right? You get to kind of play with this. And then you say, hey, here's just a handful of questions. Want to know what you think. And then you get a response rate from this that overnight, same number of questions. And I've seen the response rates double and triple and move into statistically significant levels. It's like, oh, nice. People, because, okay, well, ask Caitlin, why did you delete the one you deleted? Right? Like,
I don't have time.
Thank you. Thank you. Like, come on, right? So we've just solved that problem. This is 30 seconds. Like easy.
Well, okay, so I want to nerd out for a second while we're talking about this. I do want to multitask and pull back up that deleted file because I'm now curious. How many questions were they thinking of asking me? Now, let's see here. I got to go to the right email box. You know how that is.
Yeah. Okay.
I might. Yeah. Keep talking.
That up. Let me talk about what you got to put in the email. Because funny you mentioned that. If you're going to send this out via email, which is standard, like our generic option, you need to tell them it's going to be quick. Because if you don't specifically name, I got 3 questions, only 3 questions, this will be 20 seconds. If you don't say something like that, they won't know, and they'll do just what you're doing, and they'll be like, I ain't got time. And they maybe had the time, but if you don't, you have to tell them because everybody else is sending the big, long survey. So yes, name, this is going to be easy. You got this. And then your chances of them actually replying go significantly up. So, okay, did you find it?
I did.
Okay,
it's one question in the email, but hold on, because now I'm clicking through it. You're going with me on this experience. So it was one question. Now this is American Airlines.
Okay.
American Airlines. One question in the email that makes it look easy, right?
The worst airline, but is not known for being the best on their customer experience either. So this will be interesting to see what kind of middle of the pack does.
Yeah. So it's, let's see, how likely will you recommend American Airlines? That was the question in the email, right? So NPS related question.
Right. So in the email they had one. So you click on that one question, and what pops up when you click on it?
3 or 4 questions. So there's more. So it's a little sneaky. So now they want to know, like, which is the following best describes the reason for your trip? Business and multiple choice. Business, vacation, whatnot. This was business. Are you traveling because you have the opportunity to work remotely with your destination?
Okay.
So, but then there's a next.
Now so it's asking me page.
Yeah. Now I feel like I've been hoodwinked.
Yes.
It was going to be one question.
Bait and switch, man. So they literally just burned trust, made you skeptical that when they say something, they actually that's not what it appears it's going to be. And you have to be careful because what they're going to do with you is not what it appears. You can't count on them to deliver. And now this time suck, and you're probably going to quit it and not finish this thing.
Well, I clicked next again because I finished those 3 questions and I was next, and it gave me 1 question. So I'm like, okay, I must be almost done. So I finished that question and clicked next. And now my eyeballs are huge because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more things to fill out.
Oh my gosh. And there's probably still another next button.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
I'm done. Yeah. I'm not going to go any further.
Okay, guys, this has created a negative customer experience. Caitlin likes the brand less. They cost her to do this deal. But okay, even then, what many of us do is we go through this process. We suck it up 3% of the time we do it, right? We finally bring it down. I like to see, so your raving fans will answer. They truly love you. Also, your raging fans will answer.
That's true.
How dare you? I'll give you a survey answer, right?
And listen, the flight attendants, I fly often. And so I happen to be upgraded to first class. And this is the first time I've ever seen a flight attendant call us by name.
Ooh, interesting.
And so I would love to tell American Airlines about that, but now you're having me jump hoops on all the cleanliness, environment. What did you think about all this stuff?
Goodness. Okay, so let me make it even better. Don't just break it down small. That's good. It gets even better because Has anyone ever actually replied to you after you sent in their answer? I don't mean the
No.
form letter, not like the
Yeah.
generic, like, thank you for your response. Like an actual, like we read it and we replied like, hey, we really,
I may in my life gotten one because I feel like I'm remembering, but it was an automated generated like, thank you for your response.
yeah, man, why don't we reply? It's not that hard. Now, okay, let's say you're American Airlines and you got millions of customers. That's fine. You can send a generic kind of summary response. Hey, by the way, you can automate a lot of this now and say, hey, I appreciate you had a great trip. We love that you scored us high on these things, right? Or you can do, I've seen brands, well, they'll actually take the results, look at it, and they'll pull one insight out. And they'll be like, hey, we're really glad this has remained strong for us. Or, hey, 11% of you didn't, you got a 4 out of 5, and we're not okay with that. So we're going to go work on fixing it. Thanks for letting us know. And so some sort of group response. If you're a company that does fewer clients for bigger deals, you should probably do like a personal response. Like, hey, Miss Johnson, I appreciate your response. We really want to follow up with you on this. Listen, if they're gonna put time and effort into you, you should reward them and affirm them. You want them to do this more, you should respond. So you see the night and day difference between the annual sacrifice that has multi-page and takes 15 minutes and nobody does anything. And I'm annoyed to like, oh, that took me 30 seconds. And then they gave me a quick response. And they're like,
well, and here's what's interesting. I think in this case, American Airlines is trying to pulse survey me because it was in a connection with a recent flight I was just on.
Yeah.
So I think there's the spirit of a pulse, but then they throw in all these extra questions because you were saying 4 questions, 2 to 4, 30 seconds max.
Well, not to complain to create a competition, but I mean, I might be a little competitive.
You have an inner competitive style, yes.
Yes, I do. I'm a Delta guy. Now, part of that is I live in Atlanta, and hey, Delta's hub is here, and so we can get everywhere direct flight. I mean, my brother is actually an executive at Delta. Like I love me some Delta.
Yeah.
So that bias aside, I would like to submit as evidence Delta's pulse survey, which is brilliant.
Tell me.
Not an email setup. They do have an email one. I'm talking about their phone survey because every now and then, right? Storm happens, flights need to change, right? My schedule.
Or this global issue.
A little detail. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so the time of this recording was just recently, I don't know, a few weeks ago, the IT outage that shut down most of the computers in the world, including airlines all over the world, including Delta. It was bananas. Okay. So, yeah, they have when you call their center and talk to one of their reps, right? They say, hey, would you be willing to stay on the line for one question? And now it's legitimately one question. And that's it. By the way, the question is, and this is a brilliant example of, we'll geek out about questions in a minute. But I'll tease it with this. When we get there, I'll tell you what the one question is. And it is
now you got to hang on. Yeah.
Genius. Okay, but that's it. And then you're done. They say, thank you, appreciate your answer, and they hang up. No tease, single question. I never answer surveys. Sometimes I answer that question.
Interesting.
Because I'm like, I know. Like one time I did it because I'm a question nerd, right? I'm like, okay, I'll do it.
You want to hear what they're
really
asking.
Do this? And then I was like, dang. So now I'm like, oh, that one's easy. Hit the button I want. Then I move on. Done.
So before we were getting ready for this recording, we were also talking about other ways to pulse. Because sometimes you can't do the email.
Right. That's a generic thing. Sending emails, collecting data. Yep. But you had a really good example.
Yes. So I used to work for Marriott International, and among their brands is the Ritz-Carlton brand. So very specifically, the Ritz-Carlton residences and clubs have owners that live there or rent from there.
Not like I pop in once or twice a year. Like that's my home, right?
Correct.
I have a permanent residence. Yeah.
Correct. So you can't pulse owners once a month. Well, you're not going to want to.
I suppose you could, but
I mean, how much changes from a month to month too? I guess I would ask, from an owner standpoint. So here's what the resident manager, who was like the general manager of a residence, did. So he would schedule coffee chat once a month He would schedule coffee chats, invite the residents to come and enjoy coffee with him, right? Because in a previous podcast, we were talking about Ritz-Carlton, their ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. So it was an elegant coffee opportunity before you head out for the day. Just stop by and chit chat. And so he was very thoughtful at that point about what questions he was asking during those coffee chats to get pulse survey information, essentially.
You see the pattern, right? It's monthly. There's an opportunity. It's simple. I'm not asking for huge commitment. And now you're getting into some fun. He even added a little incentive, right? Like, hey, free coffee. It's not like they can't afford their own coffee, right? If you're staying as a resident at a Ritz property, like but it's probably a high-end, nice experience, cool environment, a little bit of social time.
It's with the resident manager. So it's not the front desk associate or the front desk manager. It's the leader of that residence.
Yes. And so you add that. It's funny. It makes me, so this is where you start getting into the nuances, right? If you see the generic option, then you start fitting your situation. So Chick-fil-A does a pulse survey, and they do it. They have an algorithm that every so often a small percentage of the people who order from Chick-fil-A, in the old days, if you go old school and you get printed a receipt, you get a super long receipt printed. The second half would be the instructions on how to go online to this website and take a question.
Yes.
And then now here's what they did. They started cheating. I'm like, and then I see what you're doing. Because I'm like, wait, that's not 4 questions. They started with 7 questions, and then they've expanded it now to like 15 questions. And you're like, how are you getting away with that? 2 things. They have a lot of raving fans, but here's the real kicker. They say on the survey thing, if you take this survey, we will give you a free sandwich. At the end of the survey, I'll say thank you. Thank you.
That's worth it.
Okay. Now, what they're doing is they're creating an incentive that says, hey, the leader, think about the property manager, right? The residence manager, the leader's going to be there. You're going to get nice coffee. It's going to be a fun little moment, personal connection. Oh, and I'm going to get insight. And Chick-fil-A says, well, okay, they can't, this is the alternative. They can't physically show up, like, the owner of that restaurant or the headquarters guys can't show up. They have too many customers, right? Millions of customers on a weekly basis. But hey, I can get you a free sandwich. And let's think strategically, right? The manager that makes that connection, the stronger that relationship is, the better the brand is, the better experience. Like that's good. It keeps it sticky. Chick-fil-A, guess what? That free sandwich, they don't actually give you a free sandwich on the spot. They give you a code that you can then come back and redeem for a free sandwich. Let's be honest. You're not rolling up in there getting a free sandwich only, right?
You got to get the fries.
Thank you.
Maybe a milkshake. Yeah.
I mean, just to round it out, and then you your family, and oh heck yeah, no, the sandwich you can. It's not a bait and switch. You can just get a free sandwich. I just don't think many of us do, right? Like,
probably not.
I'm at it. So it's a sticky benefit. Like it's a true benefit with no strings attached that also benefits the brand. I mean,
It's reciprocity.
Yes, reciprocity. I give you a gift. You feel like, oh, the graciousness and the response. I'm going to give you something back, and we create a relationship. Guys, there's a lot of really intelligent strategy in these simple little pulse surveys. They literally become brand building it benefits, not a sacrifice that annoys your customer. American Airlines asked you to sacrifice and then kept like tricking you that we're almost done. Well, not really. Versus these other options where it gets really, really cool. I'll give you one more thing for project-oriented folks. I would say the key thing is time the questions to be at the key milestone markers of your project.
Oh, that's clever. I like that.
Oh, so like construction, I think that was one of the examples we used, right? There's these key moments. We work with home builders, multiple big home building companies, high end, entry level. But like one of the moments is the framing. We do all this kind of this foundation work and dirt work and gut work. And then at some point we pop a frame up and it's suddenly like I can see the house.
See it. Yes.
There's a moment, right? And that's typically a really cool moment. Bring them in. And sometimes people physically come by the house, see the frame. We do a cool little moment there. You can do it like the Ritz way. But there's other folks who are like, we're just going to send you pictures and do a little digital survey, but you time it to the key moments when it's like, oh, we hit this milestone. How's it going so far? We hit this milestone. And guys, there's one other benefit to this that's huge. Not only do you get higher response rates, when you sequence the questions throughout the life of the project or just throughout the life of the year, you get more honest data. Because what we try to do is at the end of the project or the end of the year, I'm going to ask you 25 questions or even 10 questions. And you think you're getting, you might ask questions about how was the beginning of the project? How was the middle of the project? How was the end? It is all skewed data.
Yeah.
Psychology, they call this the recency effect. Whatever's most recent is what's dominant. And so you might have been awesome at the beginning or awful, and it doesn't matter because however you performed in the last 3 weeks is how they're going to answer.
Yeah, that's fair.
All skewed. And so if you want to actually know what it feels like to them in the middle of your project, you have to ask in the middle of the project. If you only ask at the end, you really don't have honest data about how it feels in the beginning or the middle. You just don't know. And so, so timing has everything to do with the kind of customers you have and the kind of services or product you provide for them.
Can I share one more example I just thought of? Okay. Gas station. And it's not Buc-ee's.
Okay. I'm interested.
Hold on. And actually, darn it all, I cannot remember what gas station it was. But we was on a road trip with my family, and I have 2 daughters. So the 3 of us go to the restroom, and there was a little bit unclean. But they had, those stand-up red, yellow, green button machines?
Yeah.
So they had one of those in there, and my daughter was like, I'm going to let them know this isn't great. And so she pressed the red button. Let me tell you, somebody showed up, an attendant showed up while we weren't in there long. We were washing our hands, getting ready to leave out. Somebody came in and turned the button off, cleaned up. I've never seen that happen with those red, yellow, green machines. I was going to say,
I've seen that machine before. But nobody, I've never seen anybody respond to the machine.
I was shocked. I was like, look at these guys. They're trying to compete with Buc-ee's.
I mean, come on. Well, to compete with Buc-ee's, they'd have to avoid the mess in the first place.
Fair. But
props to them for actually responding to the deal. I mean, this is a great example. It's a 1-button survey, right? Physical, but so they did the first part. And that's why the second part is actually respond.
Yes.
Now the chances, because I pushed the button a few times in the early days, but Atlanta Airport has stuff like this, others, I've seen other gas stations, and nobody did anything. So now I never push the button because I'm like, it isn't going to do any difference.
Right.
And you actually were rewarded for it, which means the chances of you hitting the button again the next time, they're a reinforcing loop. Guys, this silly, dumb little thing that we are nerding out can actually be one of the most powerful tools in your customer insight system. You want to get a steady flow of information and feedback and honest data and know what's going on with your customers. Make it easy for them to respond in the moment and reward, even if that reward is just a reply to say, hey, thanks, Caitlin. I love that you answered. We're going to work on that. Something that says we notice you. It makes a real difference. Okay, now I teased you with questions. What if we do this? What if we wrap up by nerding out on the kinds of questions that we see? So you actually, in the American Airlines, I'll give them props. We picked it. We've been punks to them today, right?
I like them. I have good experiences.
I don't mind flying them. I have some friends that work there. They're great people. So I'll give them props. The first question they have is the first question I would recommend. The NPS or the link Net Promoter Score is what NPS is short for. So do you remember what you said, what it was?
It was, would you recommend us to friends or family?
Yeah, this is the most validated customer insight question in the industry. They've been tested. It's the most honest, right? Like what they answer actually tells you really what's going on. And so make your own version of this. Now, let's get in the weeds a little bit on why it matters. It's 1 to 10 in this case. You can do 1 to 5, it's fine. But Net Promoter Score is always 1 to 10. And then the way they do it is it's net, because if it's I think I get this right. The 9 or 10 is a positive. It gives you 1. I think it's 6, 7, 8, or maybe it's 7, 8. They're neutral. You get a 0 for those. and then it's like 5 and below or 6 and below. I can't remember where that line is, but those are negative, right? And so, and then you net it out. How many positives, how many negatives, the neutrals don't count. And I think that alone is an interesting insight, right? 7 or 8 is like, yeah, I mean, I'm not mad at you, but I'm not really going to recommend you, right? I'm just trying to be polite.
Yes.
And so that question is a great question. How likely, now you could say, how likely to recommend to a friend, how likely to recommend to a colleague, right? If it's a business scenario. This is Delta's question. It's genius. They made their own version of it, but it's the same concept. 1 to 10. And on the phone, you have little buttons. They're like, just punch the number that correlates with it. They said, if you ran a customer call center, how likely would you be to hire the person you just spoke to?
Holy cow, that's brilliant.
Thank you.
I think I even spit when I said brilliant.
It's genius. Do you see why I'm like, oh, well played, Delta. And then they say, yes, your feedback. We love learning. And then they hang up on you. And you're like, done. I'll actually answer that question. How likely would you be to, and then fill in the thing. Mostly it's recommend us, but they went even more nuanced. Like how do you because I wouldn't recommend a call center person. Like, oh, Caitlin, I really recommend you call Dolores over there. She was awesome.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, no, if it was that good, would you hire this person? Like, that's interesting. So
wow. That's elevated language, Scott. We were just talking about elevated language.
Call back to a previous episode. I like. So yeah. Okay. So net promoter score, come up with some version of this. Here's what I would say. Also, ask historical based questions like, how much did you appreciate this? Or how well did this part of your experience go? Right. And name something that they should have had happen to them. If you, especially thinking about a project or experience. So Chick-fil-A, and well, I'll come back to them. But so like, if you're thinking like, oh, how well did the framing ceremony go? If you're a builder, right? Or if you're in a doctor's office, how fast was your check-in process? And then ideally your answers are specific. So if you can't come up with a more specific thing, you can do the 1 to 5. 5 is awesome, 1 is awful kind of thing, right? But man, it'd be like, how long did you wait for your order? How long did you wait before someone greeted you, right? 0 to 1 minute, 1 to 5 minutes, right? 5 to 10 minutes. And you try to get them specific. And like, as much as possible, talk about specific situations, specific actions, and give them specific answers. Multiple choice it though. Don't ask them to write an essay, right? And just try to figure out how long did this take? What did that feel like? Now, sometimes you can't get that. And then you go, how did this feel? 1 to 5. So I'll give Chick-fil-A example. They will ask about the time to receive your order, but then they stop doing that because now their machines, they just put into the system.
They track it in.
When I hand it, the team member punches next order and the screen shows them next order to hand out. And we know how long it took. Like
I've seen that at Starbucks also.
So that question went away. It didn't go away is the question on taste. Like, how did your food taste? Well, that's pretty hard to be like, oh, it was a 92.3 on the taste scale, right? Like what? So
your 92.3 might be different from mine. Yeah.
Thank you. So they just say 1 to 5. How satisfied were you with the taste of your food is the actual question.
Okay.
5, very satisfied. 1, very dissatisfied, right? Standard. Could you get more precise? Yes. In fact, Chick-fil-A, for their internal staff, have a measure in the back of the restaurant to measure precisely whether the food was made correctly to taste and style.
Wow.
Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich has 13 questions that you go through to know if it was done right. And by the way, question 13 is taste it. Did it taste correctly? Like, take a bite. But it's like the pictures. Hey, here's a picture of the bun. Was it toasted properly? Here's under toasted. Here's over toasted. Was the bun in range? And they pull a sandwich off the line and they don't resell this sandwich, right? They use up a sandwich for testing, but
quality assurance. Yeah,
that's exactly right. They know how to get but you know what you're not going to do? You're not going to get your customers to give you 13 detailed questions like, please open your sandwich at this point in time. Now we literally could. They literally know how to do it. And they could put on the phone, do it digitally and be like, here's a picture of properly toasted. Was a bun properly toasted? But they don't. You know why? Because in a pulse survey like this, what the goal is to maximize the number of customer responses that give you close enough feedback. If you went through 13 questions with pictures and you have to disassemble the sandwich and check all the stuff, I'll give you my favorite. You wouldn't get responses. By the way, this is a sidebar, but I think this is funny.
Okay.
One of the favorite things about the pickles, I don't know.
I like the pickles.
I'll say, are you pickle, no pick, right?
I like a pickle.
Okay, so again, lingo, Chick-fil-A culture. We talked in a previous episode about elevated language, right? We said, the more different your culture is, the more different your language is. Chick-fil-A has its own set of lingo and acronyms and all that. But no pick is for no pickles, because it's extremely common for people to ask for no pickles on their sandwich. In fact, they just pre-make some with pickles and some without pickles, because a lot of people. Now, I was a no pick guy for ages, long before I knew that term. Right, I just grew up. I grew up with Chick-fil-A. Right, I went to high school with the family that owns it. It was literally our high school cafeteria food was Chick-fil-A. Pretty sure we're the only high school in the history of the world that could say Chick-fil-A was our
Chick-fil-A every day. Yeah,
it's a private school. When the Cathy family go to your school, we get a little inside odds there. So. It was awesome. Okay, back to the point. But doing this test, I had to taste it. And they wanted you to taste it standard. And like, even if it's nasty, taste it and be like, yeah, that's how nasty it's supposed to taste. Like, if you don't like
so
it. Like one of our guys is like, I hate coleslaw. Like, I don't test coleslaw. No. You have to bite coleslaw. If you really want to be a pro, taste your dadgum coleslaw, even if you're like, that's gross. That's how it's supposed to taste. But I'm thinking that's what's going to happen. And I started biting those pickles. By the time I finished working at Chick-fil-A, I was like, dang, I'm an extra pickle guy now. But
extra pickle.
They have rules for the pickle, because you could reach into the pickle bucket and then you just put a chunk of pickles and you have this little like stack of pickles in one spot. They're like, no, appropriate pickle spread, Caitlin. That's what officially it says, right? It's
hilarious.
2, 3 if they're small, and here's a picture, and you start getting. But now what you don't want is. By the way, this has nothing to do with pulse surveys. This is good, but it'll pay off. Give me a second. You don't want like all stacked, but you also don't want your team members like carefully like taking a minute to like lay out
pickle down
in a perfect triangle. Like it's not that, right? So they say they're allowed to touch a little bit. Like it's okay if they touch a little bit, just spread them, but we don't want them stacked. So
that's funny.
So behind the scenes, we made up our own lingo, and everybody in the restaurant says it this way, but. Chick-fil-A is a family restaurant, and so they don't want to write it this way. But the way they say it is like, listen, your pickles can be dating, but not mating, right?
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
They're allowed to hold hands, but like, get up off that other pickle, buddy. It's a family restaurant, man. Like, slow down. So
interesting lingo. Yeah.
Appropriate pickle spread is one of the things, right? You're not going to get your customers to pull open their sandwich and check if the pickles are dating or mating, right? Like.
You might get a text from me, Scott, and I'll be like, look what I found.
I mean, we got some crazy pickles up in here. So maybe a few will. But in this case, for this population, skew to the easier to get, hey, 1 to 5, how's this thing taste? Is this good? Right? Because you don't want to create a negative customer experience trying to get your customer insight.
Such a good point. Now, wait, before you move on to another great question, I think that pickle conversation did have validity to a pulse survey, because you had said they will sometimes have sandwiches made without no pick and then sandwiches with a pick. I'm assuming they figured that out based on customer insights and trends, where it's like, look, we've got so many people asking for no pick that we should just have a handful ready to go, which increases their operational excellence.
That's exactly right.
The fuel. Remember customer insight being the fuel.
When lunch rush comes, they continually tune in. What do we order? What do we track? What's going on? And the data of what the order mix is, literally each restaurant has a little algorithm that tells you, hey, Caitlin, if this is going to be a normal Tuesday lunch for you in July, we know that typically Tuesdays in July, you're going to need at least, not maximum, but minimum, you're going to need 7 with pickles and 6 with no pickles, because that's what a typical, like prep for your lunch rush. You're going to have some coming. And
that's some pretty cool insight.
It got to the level, you want to talk about high-end insight. It's updates every 15 minutes, because they don't want you making an hour's worth of food and holding an hour, because the last 20 minutes, those sandwiches don't taste as good.
Yeah.
So every 15 minutes, the system says, hey, Caitlin, make 3 more sandwiches. Hey, make 7 more sandwiches. Hey, make 1 more salad. And just like,
wow,
they've really matured. Okay, but you could start with one question and just say, hey, give me a little bit of insight. What am I working on here? What am I doing? So historical questions, err on the side of simplicity. Don't aim for high definition. Now, what Chick-fil-A did was they have other people whose job is to go do detailed searches. The internal in the restaurant, there's somebody in the restaurant who's always in charge of kind of doing our customer review. And once a quarter, they have a surprise visit from somebody who's trained. So, because you don't always want the self-assessment of like, yeah, it's close enough. And then an external person does a spot check on you. And it's like, well, actually, you don't really know what the real standard is. So they do. How do you get quality? You don't cross your fingers and hope. You have a series of constant data streams telling you how this is going, including asking your customers. So historical-based questions.
Yes.
But simple, use net promoter score for the process. And honestly, when in doubt, just make it basic and then open comment box and see what they say to you. I don't think you have to really think that most people's questions, like when we do a review of their surveys, most people have a survey. I would say 90% of the questions were like, yeah, that's a good question. You should keep that.
Okay.
The problem's not a bad question. With exceptions, there are some, but mostly it's like, I mean, we at the American Airlines,
it's too many, right?
Right. But
yeah,
you ask about the cleanliness, environment. Yep. That's not a bad question. You should ask about that. That's kind of a big deal on a plane, right? Great. But now, the one last thing I would say is if you have a thing you're working on improving in your company or a goal, so you
said recommendation.
If they want their attendants, there's flight attendants to use people's names, then they should ask, hey, Caitlin, I just want to check with you. Here's American Airlines, if you're listening, right? Jim, if this is for you, right? If you're listening, then I would just say, hey, if you want them to use your names, then all you do is you send Caitlin, I have one question. Did the flight attendants use your name on your last flight? And she clicks on it and she gets to say yes or no, add a comment if she wants, and there's no next button. Like, actually answer. And then you can go back and say, you know what? Overall, we're getting 33% use of names, but on these particular flights, we're getting 90% use of names. And you have like really useful data versus the half-finished, I really am annoyed with you experience that you just gave us earlier.
Yeah. I mean, I feel bad for poor Dale, the flight attendant. And I remember his name, right? Because he went above and beyond. And yeah, they're probably going to weasel it out of me because I want him to know that he did a great job.
So raving fans will suck it up and pay the price, and they will answer your survey, and that's how you get 3%. Dale made you a raving fan of Dale, and you're going to probably find a way to sacrifice for him. But man, how much are they missing out on because they're doing a big bulk, multi-part survey they don't reward or reply to? Guys, if you want a customer insight system, this is one of the most powerful, simple things to do. Set up some version of Pulse survey that allows you on a regular rhythm to tune in, ask simple details, and find out what your customers actually think. If you enjoyed this episode, you might want to sign up for our weekly newsletter. It's all new content with the same themes. You can subscribe for free and learn more about how we partner with our clients to build legendary companies at swozconsulting.com. That's www.swozconsulting.com. And if you want to get access to the actual tools and techniques that we use with our elite consulting clients, check out our online program at legendarybrandsacademy.com. That's www.legendarybrandsacademy.com. Greatness is possible. You just have to build the right engine.